Good morning and welcome to another Monday session of meditation. And hi to all the occupiers of White City Place, where we can engage through all of these different videos on the platform and keep connecting in this way, even from our own homes. So the meditation is a weekly session that I do. And if you haven't been with me before, I just talk a little bit about different themes around meditation and why we meditate, and also blow away some of the myths that surround meditation if you're new, if you're a beginner to meditation. Even if you are a well-seasoned meditator, it's always good to check in, and we are always learning. And the reason we're always learning is that science is constantly I was going to say finding out more. It's been finding out an awful lot about meditation, but it's more a case of proving the benefits of meditation through science. And that's the only reason that meditation hasn't been more mainstream for the last decade, as it should have been. So for anything to be accepted on a scientific level, of course, there have to be papers written about that. And to get papers written, it has to be approved. And science has a really rigorous barometer for various things to be proven. So there's proven and there's possibility. And with meditation now, whereas, it started off being possibility, there's lots of effects on the brain that have been proven. And therefore, mindfulness is making waves now in the world, which is absolutely brilliant. It's so great. And the reason that we know that meditation works, and these scientific studies that have been done, are really because they've been mapping the brain. So people have undergone little tests, big tests, with it's called EEG, but it's where they have all these little kind of plugs on their head, like a skull cap full of little transmitters. And while they're meditating, you can see on a screen what's happening in the brain. There are various neurotransmitters that will fire up one part of the brain over the other parts of the brain. So your brain has so many different waves depending on where your current mind state is. So if you are stressed, various brain waves will be operating. If you're relaxed, various brain waves will be operating. If you're focusing on something, different brain waves will be operating. If you are relaxed and calm but have an active mind, that's another set of waves. There are so many different ways that we can rewire our brain. But what I want to talk about today is the effect of stress on our brain. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that most people turn towards meditation. It's knowing that stress causes anxiety. And with anxiety, our minds turn very active, and we become focused on the worry of future and past thoughts. And it's very difficult to stay in the present moment. It makes us very hyper. Anxiety can make us very hyper. And when that happens, our breath changes. It's a much faster speed. It's not as deep as it should be. We breathe from our chest more than our bellies. And I just want to talk about that very quickly, actually. Of course, we don't breathe from our bellies. Our lungs are in our chest cavity. But there is an added layer to that. And underneath your lungs sits your diaphragm. And your diaphragm expands between one side of your rib cage to the other. And when you breathe in, it's like an elastic kind of diaphragm. So when you breathe in, the lungs are able to push down this kind of flexible diaphragm, and it pushes out the rib cage, so that creates space for the lungs. And because that's happening, because the diaphragm is in use and it is pushing down, it's pushing down against the stomach, which sits underneath the diaphragm, and then the belly is underneath the stomach. So that is why when you take a deep breath in, you can feel your belly expanding. And it's really useful to know that. When you breathe out, the reverse is true. So what happens then with that kind of very soft, pliable saucer, if you like, when you breathe out, it's a muscle. And it goes the other way and it pushes the breath back out of the lungs. And that's when the ribs kind of come back together as well. So it's kind of like this. It's like a bit like an accordion. You're breathing in. That pushes the diaphragm down, and then from the stomach, that's why you breathe into your belly, and then out. The rib cage comes back in, and the diaphragm is pushed up from the bottom. It's good to know, because if that's not happening, if you don't feel, even with a subtle breath, if you don't feel your belly expanding very, very slightly, then you will be just breathing from the chest. And that's really important, because when we're just breathing from the chest, we're not getting the right amount of oxygen in. But more importantly, we're not letting all the carbon dioxide out. And you have to have a much more even breath ratio. You want to be breathing in a little bit deeper and taking the time to really breathe out as well. Yeah. So that's just that little part on the stress. Now, with stress and anxiety, so anxiety is very prevalent nowadays. And of course, everyone talks about technology taking over. And that's true. It's also brilliant because we're learning so much. But we weren't really built to have technical features in our lives from our ancestral days, and we still have the same brain. It's evolved since then, but it wasn't designed to take in the overload of data that we take in, not just in our computers, but into our head. So when we have constant social interaction, constant data coming at us through the web, it's really hard to be present. You can't be present through that. And the reason you can't be present through that is that that you can only think of one thing at a time. Your brain, the idea of multitasking is a little bit of a fallacy. It'll appear like you're multitasking if you're doing two things at once, but your brain is oscillating between one thing and the other, or even if there's three things, it's bouncing from one thing to the other. You can't focus 100% on more than one thing at once. That's been proven in your brain. And even if you feel like you're multitasking because you're able to, flip from one thing to another really, really quick, and you can't even notice it feels like it's all happening together, it's not. And what that's doing is it's taking up more energy from your brain. Your brain already takes about 20% of your energy. So by adding to that, you are overextending the brain. And when we're anxious, we're doing that a lot. And that's why you can feel quite tired, but you find it hard to sleep because your brain is still going and it's really, really active. So I want to talk about mindfulness based cognitive therapy, which is MBCT. And it's a really great form of mindfulness for just about anybody, honestly, because it's probably the most relevant for now, for our time on this planet as it is. So if you think about having an active mind, anxiety takes over, and you can't stop negative ruminations where you're thinking about something that's happened, a relationship issue. It could be it could be anything that you are not letting go of, and you're allowing it to invade your mind. So much so that when you're walking down the street to get from A to B, you can't even remember what happened on the way because you were um, so clogged up in your mind with this ruminating thought. So how do we stop that? So the best way to overcome holding on to negative feelings, which can also cause this knot in your stomach, that horrible feeling that you're kind of living and breathing all of those thoughts. There's a couple of ideas around that. One is that everything that happens is a fleeting moment, so you can always start again. You can always start again. You can always start again. Say it again. You can always start again. So it's recognizing it that becomes the difficult thing, and not being so absorbed in it that you don't recognize it. So mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, we're going to do this in our meditation. It's kind of what I've been doing in a lot of the meditations anyway, but when you know that the reason behind why you're doing something, it makes it a little bit more important, a bit more real. So mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is basically keeping your mind on the moment. Okay, so when we keep our mind on the moment, there's a non-attachment to other things that could come in to take over these ruminating thoughts, these negative relationships, these arguments that you've had, the money issues you can't let go of, all of these things that invade your mind and make you sick because you can't let go of them. So it's building up stress, it's building up anxiety. So we want to try and stay in the present moment as much as we can. So rather than throwing you into, a deep meditation where you're just kind of, in getting into that zone where there are no thoughts, that takes a really, you'll never have no thoughts, but that takes a really seasoned meditator to get to that point. What's far more useful, because we can use this mindfulness adaptation when we're moving around. We can use this when we are, traveling from one place to another, even going into work if you like. And we can use this around our house. And then we could also slip into it with a guided meditation like the one we're going to do in a moment. So it's really useful because, we are always moving around. We are always moving around and we've always got things coming at us. Life is coming at us fast, right? There's always so much information. So it's finding the time to sit down and meditate. It is being mindful, as in your mind presently. That's what mindful is really. It's being full of mind in that moment. So not thinking about the past and not thinking about the future. Future doesn't exist yet. And the past is only what you make of it through your memory. So you could obliterate that if you try hard enough. Easier said than done. But what we do is we go through these mindfulness practices so that you learn to notice when that thought comes up. So let's just say you had an argument with a partner months ago, or maybe a family relation, and you can't let it go, and it's been bugging you for a long, long time. And every time you think about that person, you get this feeling, and you're fine when you don't see them for a while, and then something will come up or a reference to that person, it brings back that feeling. So what we do is we get used to noticing when those feelings come up, and we go, it's okay, I'm going to focus on my breathing now, or I'm going to replace that thought with something else. I'm just going to notice that it's there, but I'm not going to get attached to it. I'm going to come back to my focus of my breathing, or I'm going to use something else, whatever it might be. And being mindful is really about just taking in your environment a lot as well. So if you're on your way to work and you're having this thought comes up, stop the thought by recognizing it and then looking around you. Doesn't matter whether you're in a beautiful park or down an urban street. Just pick out what you can see, whether it's trees or lampposts. It doesn't matter. Just take it in, look at it, look higher, look above you, look at the tops of the buildings, watch people's faces as they go by you, whatever it is that keeps you in the present moment until that thought subsides. And every time it takes practice, but every time you get to that point, you bring back a cognitive idea, something that's current. You can feel how your feet are walking down the street. You can maybe start breathing a certain way, start counting your breaths. So it's various things. I'm going to start this meditation in just a moment. But what I also want to say is and the guided meditation will also give you ideas of how to do that. You can slip into this place anytime, even if it's just for 3 minutes, do a little part of this meditation that we're going to do. But another really lovely thought is if you remember to become presently aware with something that you do every day. Let's say it's opening a fridge door, or every time you put the keys in the lock to come into your house. That's a nice one. Let's just say that every time you put the keys in the lock of the door, so you come into your house, you put the keys in the lock, and just every time you do that, remember to think, okay, present moment awareness. It's just a little exercise. And see how long you can keep aware in the present. So you'll open the door, you'll feel the key in your hand, push the door open, notice any sounds that are coming, look down, see how the carpet or the floor looks. Walk in, notice if there's any light coming in, if it's dark, if there's a light on, if it's daylight, if the lights are coming in, if the doors are open. Just inane things that are always there, but you're starting to really look at them. Sounds are a great thing because they change quite a lot. They can be different one day to the next. And see how long you can be mindful, walking through, taking your coat off, dropping your bag down. Does that make a sound when it touches the floor? Looking at how many hangers you have when you go to put your coat up, stopping and looking in the moment. And so just see how long you go. It won't last for a long, long time, but just see how long you can go. And that starts to build up this idea of being really mindful as much as you can. And then the more you do that through your day, let's just say you did that for a while and you go, oh, okay, that's done. And then somebody starts talking to you, so you're distracted. And then you talk about what you're going to have for dinner and life goes on. And maybe then you can go, okay, I'm going to make dinner. And you start making dinner and you can become mindful again. You can feel the handle of the pan that you're going to put on the stove. Listen to the noise that the stove makes when you turn it on, if it's gas or electricity, whether it beeps or whether it has a flame, feeling the heat come from the pan, watching the water boil, all of those little things you can tap into every now and then, which is a mindful moment. And it's stringing those moments together that build more mindfulness in your life. Therefore, it will subjugate over time those thoughts. The thoughts will still be there. You'll still remember the argument you had, but you'll be less emotionally tied to that thought. You'll be less emotionally reactive. It'll be like, okay, there's that nasty thought. I really don't want to get involved in that. Okay, what do I do? Oh, I'm going to look around. You'll start to be far more aware. Okay, let's get started. Otherwise, you'll be wanting to get going on this and might not be very comfortable at the end. So make sure you're comfortable now. If you need to shuffle around, do that. Shuffle around, find your comfy space, and just allow yourself to close your eyes. And just really kind of take a note of how you are breathing right now. So by closing your eyes, you might just automatically take a deep breath. It's what we associate with relaxing, right? You just kind of sit down and close your eyes and go, right. And that's fine. If that's what you did, that's what you did. You're just noticing that. But just notice your breath as though it's happening to somebody else. So I don't want you to control your breath. I don't want you to deliberately breathe a certain way. I just want you to relax into it and just notice how you're breathing. And while you're noticing, there's many things, by the way, that you can notice about your breath. There is whether or not your belly may be expanding just a little bit on the in-breath, or whether it was just the rib cage, or whether the breath was a little bit higher in the chest. And then there is the length of each breath, whether the in-breath is longer than the out, or if it's the other way around. And then there is the amount of oxygen that you're breathing in. So is it a big breath, or is it subtle? Are all the breaths even, or are you finding that you're taking some big breaths and then some kind of medium ones and some tiny ones? Or maybe your breath is just very shallow right now. You can still have a very shallow, calm breath and still feel that movement in your belly, by the way. So just be aware of that. And then we're going to bring our attention to our bodies. So, however you are sitting, and that doesn't matter how that is, as long as you're comfortable. Just taking your attention to the right heel of your foot, the heel on your right foot. You don't have to do anything. You just bring your attention to that part, your right heel. And bring your attention to the middle arch of your right foot. Your right big toe. See if you can bring your attention there without moving the toe. Your second big toe. The middle toe. Fourth toe. And your little toe. And then your right ankle. Maybe easing a little bit there. And then taking the focus to your right calf, the muscle, the back. Whether it feels heavy or tight or relaxed. And then the front of your shin. Just bring your awareness to the bone, the skin over the bone. And then to your knee, underneath your knee, above your knee, behind your knee, the whole knee just softening. And just coming up to your right hip, releasing there. And just flipping over to the left, taking your attention to your left heel. The inner arch of your left foot, your left big toe, second toe, middle toe, fourth toe, and little toe. To your left ankle, and your left calf, noticing if it feels heavy relaxed, or if there is some tension in the muscle, to your left shin, so the front, and just being aware of that bone, that long bone from your ankle to your knee, and then the skin on top of that shin, leading up to your knee, below the knee, above it, behind the knee, just softening so many little ligaments and tendons there, just letting go. And then your left hip. And however you are sitting, just feeling that groundedness, your pelvis just sinking into gravity, supporting the rest of your body, taking all of the weight. And then if you've got your hands on your lap, just turning your palms so they're turning up, facing up. And then we're just going to travel up your back from the sacrum, so the very bottom of your spine, just tracing your awareness up the spine, just until you get to the top of your neck. Then take your attention to your shoulder blades. Just see if you can feel your shoulder blades relaxing. The shoulders themselves just kind of dropping away a little bit from the ears. Taking your attention to your right wrist. Just relaxing your wrist. And then to your right thumb. Without moving your fingers, take your attention to your index finger. Just imagine where it is. See if you can feel it from the inside without moving it. Your middle finger, your fourth finger, your little finger, and then take your attention to the palm of your hand, just the skin there exposed to the air, and just noticing any sensations at all. It can be anything at all. It could be very subtle pins and needles. It could be feeling a little bit like there's a weight in your hand, even though there's nothing there. Just a sense of maybe energy, or maybe nothing at all. Maybe you're just aware of feeling the hand resting on your thigh. And then just go over to the left-hand side, to your left wrist. Keep your right hand where it is. On your left hand, your left thumb. Again, keeping the fingers still, the left index finger, middle finger, fourth finger, little finger, the palm of your hand, skin, exposure to the air, maybe pins and needles, maybe a sense of weight. Then just notice both the hands together. And even if you don't get the sensations, taking your awareness to the fingers without moving them is quite an interesting idea, because sometimes we can't actually tell if the fingers are straight or slightly curled without looking at them, of course, but just feeling here, getting an idea of how the fingers feel. And then taking your attention to the back of your neck at the top, and then tracing over your skull, the back of the skull, all the way around the back until you come to the crown of your head. And just getting an idea of how that feels, the crown of your head. You can just kind of imagine that little patch of skin under your hairline. Just getting a sense of that area. Might just be a tiny dot, or it could be maybe 2 inches by 2 inches, or a circle. And then just tracing over the front of your head, over your forehead, relaxing through the brow line. Your eyelids heavy, your eyeballs heavy, sinking into the eye sockets. And your jawline relaxed. Maybe the tongue is sitting in the lower palate, heavy. And again, taking your attention back to those hands every now and then, just seeing if you can notice any sensations at all in your hands. Maybe it's just getting a sense of the fingers again without moving them, just in space. And then just taking your mind to the back of your eyelids so you can actually see now. You have your eyes closed, but you're looking at the back of your eyelids. And whatever comes up there, you can just keep your focus on whatever you can see. So you might get a color. It might be a muddy shade. It might be a few colors interacting with each other. There might be patterns, or it might just be not very much at all, but your idea is to keep your focus on whatever it is that comes up and accepting whatever it is that comes up. So you're looking behind your eyelids, but also taking your attention to how your body is feeling. So you've just done a scan of the body, getting everything a little bit softer, a bit more released to every muscle and tendon. And you'll notice that when you take your attention back to the body, you do have to kind of just focus on that. And then you make the choice to come back to the eyelids. What's behind the eyelids? What can you see there? So you start to oscillate between the two. So you back at your eyelids, just noticing, and it might be a slightly different color to before, or the color might have expanded, or it might have some light spots in the middle or at the sides. And as you're looking at your eyelids, just drop your eyes down as if you had your eyes open, you'd be looking down. And you might find that the color changes. So just taking your awareness there. And that might get a little bit tiring on your eyes because you're using the muscles behind your eyes to actually look downward. So after you've discovered whether the color is a little bit different or shade, then gently just let your eyes come back to the center again. And feel the muscles just relax a little bit as you just let go of that gaze. And again, just let anything that comes up. You're just looking at that, whatever it might be. Really noticing. So there are so many things you can look at with your eyes closed. It can be the texture of whatever it is you're looking at. Does it look like it's soft? Does it look like it has many layers? Does it feel like an abstract painting that you're looking at? Or is the image moving? Does it change a little bit like a lava lamp can change? Maybe it gets the odd fleck, either darker or lighter. Can you notice if you're really, really looking, or if you have a more relaxed bystander view of what's behind your eyelids? And then flip back into your body again. Noticing, scanning the body for any discomfort anywhere. If there's anywhere that you can feel maybe aching a little bit, or maybe it's not even an ache, it's just a feeling. You focus on that feeling. And then when you focus on the feeling, the body part, let that go and feel your whole body as a whole just softening, everything together. Just letting go of any muscle tension anywhere in your body, just like we did with a muscle scan, the body scan. And then go back to behind your eyelids again. So go back to what you can see behind your eyelids. Only this time, get a sense of how the body is without having to focus back on it. So that when you're looking at the back of your eyelids, you are calmly aware of both what you can see behind the eyelids and what you can feel. So it's not like multitasking, because you're not fully focusing on one or the other. You are just allowing both sensations of the body, the focus of the eyes, to be subtle. You're just in that calm awareness. And while you're sitting here, just bring in some sounds now. So I want you to tune in to any sounds around your space. It may be a distant hum of traffic. It may be more local than that in your room. Computer sound, dishwasher, water, person sharing your place. Or it might be the sound of silence, just that buzz of silence that has its own kind of energy. Just hearing that silence. And any other sounds that come in. And see if you can kind of scan your ears so that they are reaching out as far as they can go in terms of distant sounds. Might even just be a sense of distant traffic, maybe a hum. And then bring yourself back to the feels of your body. Looking behind your eyelids. It might have changed color now. And then very gently start to bring yourself back into the world, your space, but do it very slowly. I want you to very, very gently start to move those fingers, and then you'll discover whether they were curled slightly or straight. Just give your fingers a little bit of movement. So notice that. Were they straight? Were they curled? None of it matters. You're just being conscious of it, being aware. Start to notice how your breath is. You might have forgotten about your breath a little bit when you were doing your um, looking behind your eyelids, or the sounds, or even the body feels. You might have forgotten about your breath, and that's fine. It was already doing what it naturally does. It's fine. It's all good. And then very gently opening your eyes, so you bring yourself back into your space again, mindfully. Just kind of noticing how that feels when you start to bring light into your eyes again. And just keeping a little sense of that sensory awareness, what you can see, what you can feel in your body as you start to move away from the meditation and get around your day, and what you can hear. So I hope that really helps you become more mindful. I will be here next week and we can tap in again. And I wish you well. Take care. And thank you for being